crazy. I like you. 'Cause you're crazy.
Hello and welcome back to my RC channel. I'm AndyRC and today I'm going to be checking out a new product from LDARC, aka King Kong. Now I hate having to explain every single time that King Kong became LDARC, but King Kong had a certain reputation, so I feel like I need to mention it every single time. Anyways, this is a new series of tiny whoop style aircraft. This is the tiny 6X, and there's also going to be a tiny 7X and an 8X. So I'm a little bit skeptical about the 8mm version because in the past 8mm motors haven't worked very well on a tiny whoop style aircraft. Anyways, this is the tiny 6X, and look at this. It's got a built-in charger in the Lunchbox. So let's get and take a closer look at it. The tiny 6X has got 7mm motors, not 6. So if you are wondering what is the difference between the tiny 6 and the tiny 6X, it's confusingly the motors. And the tiny 7X is going to have 8mm motors and the 8X 8.5. Very confusing, but there you go. This is the Free Sky version, so it's come with a XM receiver. I'm spotting a couple of other receivers here as well. We've got the Fly Sky 2A protocol, DSM2, and you can also get it as a plug and fly as well without a receiver. So, before I move on, I want to answer one of the big questions I know is going to be on everyone's mind, and that is, does this model have an on-screen display? And the answer is, of course not, it's King Kong. For some reason, they are against on-screen displays. It seems that way. Unfortunately, their demographic is very much for on-screen displays. So, that's probably going to lose a lot of people's interest altogether. However, one thing I will say is that on a tiny whoop style aircraft, an on-screen display isn't as useful as it is on, say, a brushless model, because the battery voltage, it isn't reliable. It just drops completely. However, what I do like about an on-screen display on a tiny whoop is you can put a flight timer on there, so you can monitor your flight time and land before you know the battery is going to run out. So LDARC, if you are listening, people want an on-screen display. In fact, this isn't cheaper than the Eachine QX65, which has the B-Core V2, which does have an on-screen display. So in that respect, I think this is going to struggle. However, this Lunchbox and the built-in charger is absolutely fantastic. So I'm going to move on and we'll take a look at that. Now, the Lunchbox actually has two compartments to it. We've got this bit here, so we've got two clips here, and then that lifts up. We've got some spare propellers of different colours here, so this is quite normal for LDARC, and you actually get 3 different canopies as well, so maybe this is where the extra money goes instead of an on-screen display. You know, it all depends on the kind of thing that you are after. And then we've got a prop remover, we've got some spare connectors here, and they're both the same, so it's 2mm pitch JST. We've got a instruction manual here for the XM, and then we've got, it looks like a instruction manual for the entire thing. So yeah, this stretches all out here. By the way, there's going to be a RTF version of this coming out. I don't think you can get it, but it's going to have this little transmitter here, and yeah, it's going to be an RTF version. But you've got everything here that you need to know all about the VTX, etc. And I actually think the VTX in this one is a 25 milliwatt one. It's not a switcher. It's 16 channel, and you can see there we've got the usual LEDs there which tell you the channel that you're on, and it's got a button on the flight controller there, so all of that is pretty straightforward. It's got a little bit of Betaflight setup, and I've plugged this into Betaflight already. It's come flash with version 3.22, and pretty much nothing was set up. It's got motor stop turned on, and it's got arming on the AUX 1, but it's also got angle mode permanently on the AUX 1. It doesn't have air mode selected, it doesn't have anti-gravity selected. However, I would say with a brushed model, have air mode on an actual mode rather than on permanently, because they don't seem to like to have angle mode and air mode at the same time there. But yeah, it's a fairly simple setup because it's a tiny whoop and there's no on-screen display, so you don't have to mess with any of that there. And yeah, it was set up correctly for the receiver. So we got some like spare grommets and that in there as well for the flight controller. So if we just close that and then open up the next compartment. So this is the advanced version. I think there's going to be like a basic version and an RTF version as well. So you don't always get this tub. It depends which one you buy. And we've got 3 batteries in here. Now, when I reviewed the QX65, all of the batteries, bar one, had come puffed. These seem to be okay. They are LDARC branded and 250 milliamp. This is weird, though. Look at this, the voltage, 3.8 volts. I'm not sure what they are getting at there. A normal 1S LiPo would be 4.2 volts, and a high volt would be 4.35, so I've no idea what that means. I'm gonna have to check it out, but yeah, we've got 3 of those there. And then this is the copter itself. It's actually held in by this rubber band here that clips around there, and you've got loads of different spare slots for batteries in there as well. So yes, looks like we've got 7mm motors there, and you can see we've got the little copper single wire there for the VTX, and then we've got the camera up the front. It's exactly the same as the other tiny series, I believe, and we've got a quality control thing over the top there, and then we've got the flight controller there, and it's an F3, so the motors just clip in here on these little JST connectors. Then we've got a little micro USB there, and then the XM receiver is just tucked in under there on a sticky pad. So yeah, fairly straightforward when it comes to the model. And again, we have got a 2mm pitch JST for the battery, and the battery will go in there. Now the weight is interesting. It's 26 grams, which would say was heavy for a tiny whoop style aircraft, but you have to remember 7mm motors, and then it is 30 grams with a battery on the top. So then we have this charger here, which is built in to the little tub, and you can see we've got an XT60, so we can plug a battery in there, and we've got a little USB connector so you can charge it off a USB as well. So I don't know whether you can see that, but on the box there it says the battery that it can take is a 2 to 4S. And be careful as well when you're charging, because we've got 2 rows of battery chargers here. This one here is for USB only, and this is for the battery only. We've got 1.25 pitch and also 2mm pitch here, and this is interesting. It's got a little diagram here, and it says when these are not bridged, it's charging at 4.35 volts, so high volt, and none of these are bridged. So despite this saying 3.8 volts on it, it seems like they are a high volt battery. So not sure what they are talking about there, because it wouldn't be 3.8 volts completely discharged. That would be like storage charge. Actually 3.85 volts for a high volt. So not sure what that is about whatsoever. Maybe they are saying that that is the storage charge amount. I'm sure you'd be fine storing a high volt at 3.8, but there you go. Got a little heat sink on here as well to keep it cool, and that does protrude out of here. We've got some screws on there as well, so you can remove that charger. I do really like this. I think it's a great idea. And something else that you are given as well, we've got a tiny meter, they are calling it, and it's a little LiPo meter. So let's take a look at this. Got a load of staples in there. So yeah, looks like we've got a little meter there. And does it have any writing on it? So yeah, each one of these has a voltage to tell you what it is. That's pretty nice, but if there was an on-screen display, we'd be able to see that better, and it tells you all of the voltages down there. And one thing I'm interested to see is what these batteries have been stored at, because when I received the Eachine QX65, they had stored them at 4 volts and they'd all puffed. So yeah, be interesting to see what this one says, and I've not plugged it into anything yet, so let's plug it in and see what happens. So this thing is just so small and my eyes cannot read that. So what is it? 1, 2, 3. Yeah, so this is looking more correct, isn't it? 3.9 volts there. So storage charged much better than the Eachine one was. So one of the selling features that they are saying that this has over the other Tiny series is that it's got an LED on the back, which it does have, and it's fairly bright. I should say though, it's not programmable through Betaflight. So I have bound this up to my X10S, and I should say the bind button is very difficult to get to with it being under there, but you can just about get to it. I've got angle mode, and I've also got acro in there, and I've got arming on a switch as well. And I'm going to be using my Fat Shark goggles. Now, interestingly, on the listing for one of the versions, they have said Fat Shark V2 goggles. Now, I don't think that any of these models are coming with Fat Sharks, just to clarify that. Okay, let's see what the performance is like. Line of sight, first of all. Man, it feels really zippy. Let's check out the punch. Oh, wow. Yes, that definitely has got some performance. I dare say that on a calm day, it would perform outdoors as well. So those 7mm motors performing nicely. Now what I like to do with a Tiny Whoop is see what the prop wash is like on a fast descent. You can see that it is yawing a little bit. And that is something that Tiny Whoops do in general, but it's definitely got the performance to pull out of it, so that's pretty cool. Let's try acro. Yeah, it's even got the performance to do a little bit of acro indoors, and it barely needs any throttle to recover. That's pretty impressive, I have to say. The only limitation here being my skill. Man, yeah, this is quite a lot of fun, and that punch has surprised me for sure. Yeah, you can pull out of those acro maneuvers indoor quite easily. You just have to have this skill to be able to do it in for it to look smooth, and I'm not sure I have that, but yeah, I like it. Man, imagine if this had an on-screen display, it would just be an instant hit. And I still do think that people will buy it and like it, but it's going to be more limited, I think, than if they'd have given it an on-screen display. Look at that. Hardly any throttle needed to recover from the acro, and seems like the flight time isn't too bad either, but I am just expecting for this battery to just all of a sudden die. So what I'll do is, actually let's flick it back into angle to make sure there's no drift. There's absolutely none. Let's see what the power is like now. Still absolutely loads. So yeah, I think this is going to be a good one. Let's come in for a landing and I'll do some FPV with it.